Alright, so today we're going to start our discussion from topic 1A, that is your chemistry of life, and in it we're going to start off with bonding. So the first type of bonding that I'm going to discuss is your ionic bonding. So ionic bonding, all of these bondings are basically related to chemistry, but we also have the types of molecules in our body as well and in the living organisms as well. So that's how we're going to talk about them in biology as well. Okay, so in ionic bondings, what happens is the atoms that are involved, they either lose electrons or they receive electrons. So there are two scenarios. So atoms that are involved in the reaction may lose or receive electrons. Now we need to know what the gaining atom becomes and what the losing electron atom becomes. So one atom or part of molecules that gain electrons becomes an what? Anion. Yes. And the other atom will automatically lose electrons, so that will become the cation. So the other atom or part of molecules that lose electrons becomes a cation. The second type of bonding is your covalent bonding. But in this, unlike your ionic bonding, there is complete sharing of electrons. Right, so in it atoms involved in the reaction share electrons. Right, now this as compared to ionic bonding is the very strong bond, and in ionic bonding usually have a positive and negative end, right? But in this usually the molecules are neutral, and we're gonna see now. But this bond is very strong, and the molecules formed are usually neutral. Alright. Now, but on the other hand, in some covalent compounds, your molecules are slightly polarized. But when I say slightly, that would mean they are not completely positive or completely negative. That means they're only partially positive and partially negative. And we're gonna see that why are they slightly positive. Now, in some covalent compounds, molecules are slightly polarized. And this happens because the electrons are not evenly shared. And ionic bonding, it was transferred, right, completely, positive or negative. But in this, they're not evenly shared, so that's why they become polarized. This happens because the electrons are not evenly shared. Okay, so now it will be of two parts, like I said earlier. Now the molecule has two parts. One is slightly positive, and the other is slightly negative. Hence the names partially positive and partial negative. So this separation of charges will be known as your dipole. Clear? Alright. So this separation of charges is known as dipole. And obviously when you have dipole, so your molecule will be a polar molecule. This is partial negative positive and partial negative, and obviously your molecule is going to be a polar molecule. Clear up till here? Alright. So like the bondings, we also have some important ions in our body. Let's talk about them. So you have some inorganic ions. So importance of inorganic ions. Now before they form into ions, they are probably an ionic substance. So we're going to see how they break down into ions, and then we're going to talk about the important cations and anions. Inorganic ions. So when any ionic substance it dissolves in water, what do you think happens? They dissociate, right, into a positive and a negative ion. So that process is known as your dissociation. So when ionic substances are dissolved, dissolve in water, the ions separate in a process known as dissociation. And this is important. You should know that what exactly dissociation is, how are the ions coming in your, are they present in the first place. Okay. Now when you have different types of ions, you need to classify them into two categories, like you have important cations and important anions. So when I talk about important cations, you have sodium, calcium with their respective charges, hydrogen and magnesium. Is this clear? Right, now let's see the functions very briefly. So sodium helps in your nerve impulses. Your calcium helps you in muscle contraction. We're going to look at this later. And it also helps in formation of calcium pectate in your plants. Your hydrogen ions help you in cellular respiration, because obviously it's needed. You need it to break down the glucose, and it's also used in your photosynthesis. And your magnesium helps in production of chlorophyll, again a function that is related to your plants. Alright, one more thing I'd like to add is that your calcium pectate that is used in your middle lamella. So that's the middle layer. Now we're going to talk about it in the plants chapter. Alright, so see how your ions are very important in the body, and if they not dissociate from ionic substances, then we won't be having your important cations and and it's present in the body, then our main important functions won't be able to work. Your nerve impulses won't be able to transfer, your muscle contraction won't be able to take place, so, and respiration, that is your most vital job, all of them won't be able to work.